The air in the government office is thick with the smell of expensive cologne and old money. Liam Hennessy, the Deputy First Minister of Northern Ireland, looks down at a humble, aging man sitting across from him. He sees a nobody, a quiet, grieving father, a Chinaman who looks like he couldn't hurt a fly. Hennessy offers hollow words of peace, thinking he's in control. But as the old man walks out, he doesn't head for the exit. He heads for the restroom. Minutes later, the world shatters. Boom. The explosion doesn't just rip through the walls. It rips through Hennessy's arrogance. Smoke fills the corridors. It was a message delivered in fire and steel. As Hennessy stares at the charred remains of his building, his phone rings. It's the old man. His voice is cold, steady, and terrifying. He doesn't want money. He doesn't want peace. He wants the names of the men who killed his daughter. And he's just getting started. But to understand how a quiet restaurant owner turned into a one-man army capable of outsmarting the world's deadliest terrorists, we have to go back to the beginning. London. It's a typical gray morning. Kwan, a humble businessman who has spent decades building a quiet life, pulls his car up to a school. His teenage daughter, Fan, hops in, her face lit up with excitement. She has a school dance coming up. She's young, full of life, and the only thing Kwan has left in this world. They drive to a boutique in Knightsbridge. Fan jumps out, promising to be quick as she goes to pick up her dress. Kwan waits in the car, struggling to find a parking spot. It's a mundane moment. He watches a man leave a motorcycle in front of the shop. He doesn't think twice about it. Boom. The motorcycle was a bomb. The explosion obliterates everything around it. The shockwave hits Kwan's car like a physical fist. The windows shatter. The world goes silent, replaced by a high-pitched ringing. Kwan stumbles out of the vehicle, his vision blurred by dust and falling debris. He moves toward the boutique, or what's left of it. The storefront is gone. In the rubble, he finds her, Fan. She's gone. Kwan cradles her body in the middle of the street, a silent scream frozen on his face as the London sirens begin to wail. 12 people are dead, and for Kwan, the sun has just gone out forever. While London mourns, a newsroom phone rings. A man with a thick Irish accent uses a secret code word. He claims the attack for the authentic IRA. This isn't just a random act of violence, it's a political declaration. They want the British government out of Northern Ireland, and they're willing to pave the streets with blood to get it. The scene shifts to Belfast. We meet Liam Hennessy. He's in bed with his mistress, Maggie, when the news breaks. He's a former IRA commander turned man of peace, but the London bombing threatens everything he's built. He calls his wife, Mary, lying about where he is, but his eyes tell a different story. He's rattled. Meanwhile, in a dingy safe house, the actual bombers are watching the news. They're young, panicked. They expected a warning to clear the area. They didn't intend to kill schoolgirls, but the leader is cold. They've crossed the line, and there's no going back. Back in London, Kwan is a ghost. He sits in Fan's empty bedroom, surrounded by her stuffed animals, and the dress she'll never wear. He isn't crying anymore. He's waiting. He visits the police station every single day. He sits in the lobby for hours, a small, unassuming figure that the detectives try to ignore. Finally, he gets a meeting with Commander Bromley, the head of counterterrorism. Kwan places a paper bag on the table. Inside is £20,000, his entire life savings. I want the names, Kwan says. Bromley is stunned. He tries to explain that the law doesn't work that way. He tries to be gentle, but Kwan isn't looking for a lecture. He tells Bromley his story, a story of horror. He was a refugee from the Vietnam War. He watched Thai pirates kill his 2 older daughters. He watched his wife die in childbirth. Fan was his miracle, his only reason to breathe. Bromley warns him, "These are dangerous men. You are a civilian. Go home." Kwan looks at him. His eyes aren't sad anymore. They are hard as flint. He realizes the police are bound by rules. He is not. Kwan watches the news. He sees Liam Hennessy giving a press conference. Hennessy is smooth, talking about commitment to peace while denying any connection to the bombers. But Kwan sees through the suit. He sees the snake. He recognizes that Hennessy is the bridge between the political world and the terrorist underground. Kwan liquidates everything. He hands his restaurant over to his friend Lam. He destroys his SIM cards, wraps his phone in foil to block tracking, and packs a bag of tools, not clothes, but hardware, pipes, tape, chemicals. He drives his van onto a ferry to Belfast. He is no longer a father. He is a predator. In Belfast, Hennessy is playing a high-stakes game. He's negotiating with Kate, a British government official. He's using the bombing as leverage to get pardons for his IRA brothers. He claims he's the only one who can control the upstarts in his ranks. But then, his secretary tells him there's a man in the lobby. A Mr. Kwan. Hennessy, filled with hubris, lets him in. How much damage can he do? He asks his guards. Inside the office, the air is freezing. Kwan offers the money again. Hennessy laughs it off. He gives Kwan the politician's script. "I haven't been in the IRA for 30 years. I don't know the names." Kwan leans in. His voice is a whisper. IRA, politics, and terrorism are different ends of the same snake. Whichever end you grab, you still grab a snake. Hennessy dismisses him, thinking the interaction is over. but Quan leaves him with a warning. You will change your mind. Quan walks to the restroom down the hall. We see his hands move with terrifying precision. He isn't just handy, he's a master of chemistry. Using soda bottles, match heads, and a simple cigarette as a fuse, he constructs an IED in less than 3 minutes. He hides it behind a panel and walks out of the building. Moments later, the explosion. The building rocks. Hennessy is thrown from his chair. The windows blow out in a rain of jagged glass. The message is received. This wasn't meant to kill him. It was a knock on the door. Hennessy's phone rings. It's Quan. Have you changed your mind? Hennessy is livid. He's a former warlord, and he's being bullied by a cook. He orders his enforcer, McGrath, to track Quan down, drag him out of Belfast, make sure he never comes back. The pressure mounts further when he receives a call from British Minister Kate. She reveals she knows the gas leak was a bomb, seeing through his lies, and demands results regarding the London bombing investigation, making it clear that Hennessy's political capital is rapidly draining. However, Quan has anticipated this retaliation. We see him in his room utilizing his special forces training, chemically treating match heads and constructing makeshift explosives using household items. When Hennessy's 4 henchmen kick down the door to Quan's room, they find it empty. Quan, who is hiding in the shadows of the roof, drops down and engages the remaining men in brutal close-quarters combat. In a sequence that showcases his lethal efficiency, he incapacitates the younger, stronger men using the narrow stairwell and the element of surprise. He leaves them broken and unconscious before escaping into the night, once again vanishing into the shadows. Back at his estate, Hennessy is apoplectic. He screams at his battered men, incredulous that 4 armed enforcers were beaten by a single old man. He realizes his current team is incompetent and ill-equipped to handle a trained operative like Quan. Desperate for a solution, Hennessy summons his nephew, Sean Morrison, from New York. He is a former decorated ranger in the Royal Irish Regiment, with a specific skill set in tracking and reconnaissance. Hennessy confides in Sean, admitting that the Americans are furious about the London bombing and that fundraising for their cause has frozen. He tasks Sean with 2 critical missions. First, to find out who within the IRA ranks carried out the unauthorized bombing to save their political standing, and second, to stop Quan permanently. Liam meets his mistress, Maggie, for dinner at a restaurant. However, Quan proves he is everywhere. Hennessy receives a text message on his phone. It is a photo of him kissing Maggie at that very moment, accompanied by the text, "I want the names." Quan is watching him, signaling that he knows Hennessy's secrets and can get to him anywhere. Sean travels to London on Hennessy's orders. He meets with Commander Bromley of the Counter-Terrorism Unit at the Royal Naval College. Sean attempts to open a back channel, asserting that Hennessy's faction is not responsible for the terrorism and offering to help find the real culprits. Sean confirms to Bromley that the bombing was carried out by a renegade IRA cell that has gone rogue, using Semtex from dumps that were supposed to have been decommissioned. Sean proposes a deal. Hennessy will help identify the bombers by providing the specific code word used for the next attack, allowing the police to trace the order back to the source. However, the police must take down the cell themselves, keeping Hennessy's hands clean and preserving his political cover. Back in Northern Ireland, Hennessy retreats to his secluded farmhouse, turning it into a fortress guarded by armed mercenaries. Hennessy's men are on high alert, patrolling the grounds with dogs and shotguns. Quan, camouflaged in the woods, initiates his assault. He doesn't just attack, he herds them. A massive explosion rips through the courtyard, flipping a vehicle and causing chaos. Hennessy is dragged to safety by his bodyguards as the farmhouse burns. Realizing the location is compromised, Hennessy, now visibly rattled, admits he has underestimated the Chinaman. The tension bleeds into Hennessy's marriage. His wife, Mary, is cold and venomous. She mocks Liam for his inability to handle a 60-year-old man, questioning his manhood and longing for the days when he was a ruthless IRA commander who would have dealt with such threats violently. In a dark workshop where the actual bombers are preparing for their next strike, we see a young man soldering complex circuitry onto battery packs, indicating that the next bomb will be technologically sophisticated and deadly. The leader of the cell informs the group that the code words have been changed. Next morning, Quan launches another attack by blasting Liam's car and even injuring one of his men. McGrath leads a team into the woods to hunt Quan. This proves to be a fatal mistake. Quan has turned the forest into a death trap. One mercenary steps on a board spiked with nails. Another is taken out by a swinging log trap. He is systematically incapacitating them. Holding a knife, he demands names. Back at Hennessy's farmhouse, in a twist, it is revealed that Mary is having an affair with Sean. In a private moment, she confides in Sean that she despises Liam for not avenging her brother's death years ago. Viewing him as a washed-up old man, Liam receives information about Quan. He is a former U.S. Special Forces operator trained in Project Gamma. The files detail his history as a relentless jungle fighter and explosives expert who was imprisoned and tortured after the Vietnam War. Deep in the woods, we see a visceral scene of Quan cauterizing his own bullet wound with a heated knife and gunpowder. Hennessy confronts his old friend and enforcer, Hugh, In a private moment, Hennessy admits he did order the bombings, but they were intended to be non-lethal financial targets to gain political leverage for prisoner pardons. He is furious that the rogue cell used the Semtex to kill civilians, ruining his political maneuvering. Suspecting Hugh knows more than he is letting on, Quan infiltrates Hennessy's heavily guarded farmhouse. He holds Hennessy at gunpoint, demanding the names of the bombers, and warns him that he is wearing a bomb. If anyone comes in, he will press the button. Hennessy tells him that he doesn't know the specific names because the cell has gone rogue, but he is trying to find them. Quan identifies the explosive used as Semtex H, a stockpile from the old conflict from Vietnam War. He informs Quan that he has changed the code words so the terrorist use the code they will identify them. He spares Hennessy's life and gives him 24 hours. Simultaneously, Commander Bromley and the counter-terrorism unit in London make a breakthrough. Analyzing CCTV footage, they identify one of the bombers by a distinctive burn scar on his hand. The terrorist planted another explosive on a double-decker bus in London. The bomb detonates on Lambeth Bridge, killing 16 people and injuring many more. Bromley informs that terrorist called but didn't give a code word. A man with Irish accent said, "No more cooperation with Brits." The bomb that was used has been ID'd to Liam's Semtex again. Liam is confused because the changing of code words were only known by Liam and his nephew Sean. Kate informs Liam PMO will consider pardons if he gives the bombers immediately. Liam associate who was keeping watch on Mary informs that Sean stayed in her room for 2 hours. Then when Mary left the room, she immediately met Hugh. Analyzing CCTV footage, police identify one of the bombers named O'Reilly. He even met IRA member Hugh and the woman who was ID'd from bus explosion. Bromley informs Liam his best friend Hugh is the mole, and he is arriving at his location. They are monitoring everything from the drone above. He gives Hennessy 30 minutes to extract the information and surrender the names, or he will publicly expose Hennessy's connection to the terrorists, destroying his career and the peace treaty forever. Hennessy immediately pushes Hugh, forcing him into a chair. Hennessy is overcome with rage. Hugh confesses that he did sanction a bombing campaign, but it was meant to be a non-lethal show of force, targeting financial institutions to gain leverage for pardons. Liam screams at Hugh for turning it into a massacre of women and children. He shoots him on the leg. Hugh, defiant despite his wound, spits back that Hennessy has gone soft and cares more about his political office than the cause. He admits to running the rogue cell to reignite the war. Hennessy, needing the names to save his own skin and stop the Rome attack, tortures Hugh until he writes down the identities and locations of the bomber cell. They were 4 men and a woman. The women turns out to be Maggie, which Hugh has kept in case of insurance policy on Liam. Liam directly kills him when he hears that his wife reached out to him because she hates him because of her brother. We see a man named Ian waking up in bed with Maggie. Then, when Ian goes to washroom, Maggie immediately dresses and tempers the laptop and sets up a V-bomb in Ian's laptop. Sean is hunting Quan. Sean believes he has the upper hand, communicating Liam via phone that who informs names of the culprits. He stumbles upon Quan's primitive stick shelter, weapon drawn, moving with tactical precision. However, Quan is a master of his environment. As Sean investigates the campsite, Quan launches an ambush from the shadows. What follows is a brutal, visceral display of hand-to-hand combat. They trade blows, tumbling down steep embankments and crashing through the undergrowth. Quan utilizes a knife and a stick to disarm Sean, eventually trapping the younger man in a painful submission hold. With a blade to Sean's throat, Quan screams for the names. Later, by a fire, the 2 men sit battered and bruised. Quan checks Sean's phone. Sean tells Quan the information is on his phone. He identifies O'Reilly as the man who planted the bomb that killed Quan's daughter, Fan. He describes the burn mark on O'Reilly's hand, confirming the identity. A quiet conversation ensues about their pasts. Sheens. Every family have passed away except for a brother. This resonates with Quan, who lost his own family. Quan chooses mercy, tends to his wounds briefly, and then leaves him alive in the woods. Sean limps back to the farmhouse in the dead of night. He enters the study to find Hennessy drinking alone by the fire, with Hugh's corpse still lying on the rug where he fell. Hennessy invites Sean in. Sean reveals that Quan let him go after getting the names. Liam tells that when the bombers called in the bus attack, they didn't use the new code word he had set as a trap. This implies they were tipped off. He points out that only 2 people knew the reason for the code change, him and Sean. He informs C. Mary, the aunt Sean had affairs, was listening to their conversations. She was the leak. She warned the bombers to protect them from Liam's trap. She manipulated Sean behind the scene. Mary used Sean just as she used everyone else. Hennessy gives Sean a shovel and orders him to bury Hugh. Sean will have to execute his own aunt to tie up the loose ends. We see a high-tech counter-terrorism operation in progress. Commander Bromley is in a command center watching live feeds. Snipers and assault teams are positioned on rooftops and in boats along the Thames, surrounding the apartment block where the terrorists are hiding. Bromley gives strict orders. Don't compromise. They visually identify O'Reilly on the balcony. Maggie returns to the apartment informing the task is done. Just as the police are preparing to breach, a woman and 2 young children were seen enter the target building. Kwon bypasses their perimeter entirely. Using his cover as a gas man, he tricks his way into the terrorist's apartment. The moment the door closes, the facade drops. Kwon unleashes a fury of violence upon the men who killed his daughter. The fight is chaotic and brutal, taking place in the tight confines of the apartment's hallway and living room. Kwon uses improvised weapons and his martial arts mastery to incapacitate the terrorists one by one. The police, realizing shots are being fired inside, are forced to breach the door with explosives earlier than planned. The SWAT team storms the apartment amidst the smoke and debris. They find a scene of carnage. Kwon has already done most of the work. The police engage the remaining threats. Amidst the chaos, Kwon escapes down trough, elevator, back exit, leaving the authorities to clean up the mess. They find Maggie, the female terrorist, wounded on the floor. Knowing there is another bomb in play, they physically tortures her by pressing on her gunshot wound, demanding to know the next target. Screaming in agony, Maggie breaks. She reveals that the next target is not a building but a specific flight, Flight 136 to Rome. She identifies the passenger carrying the bomb as Ian Wood. At the airport, police teams swarm the terminal. They locate Ian Wood sitting at the departure gate, typing on the rigged laptop. An officer grabs the laptop, the police clear the civilians surround him and runs for his life and hurls it into the empty jet bridge just as it detonates. The explosion is massive, ripping through the metal gangway, visually confirming that had the device gone off on the plane, everyone, including Minister Kate, would have died. Bromley then informs every officer to stay alert and capture suspect Kwon immediately. Kate calls Liam. She knows everything. She knows he had Hugh killed, and she knows Maggie was directly connected to him and Hugh. She will keep him in his position as Deputy First Minister, but he will be entirely under her thumb. Sean directly kills his Aunt Mary. When Liam enters his apartment, Kwon is present. Kwon holds up his phone displaying the incriminating photograph of Hennessy kissing his mistress, the terrorist Maggie. Hennessy tries to play the politician one last time, claiming he never intended to hurt Kwon's daughter or any civilians. Kwon is unmoved by the rhetoric. He made him send the photo to every news outlet. Kwon says, "The whole world will know you are a terrorist," and leaves the room. Kwon unites with Lam. Bromley also located him, but let him go because they owe him one, and movie ends here. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you liked the video.